Welcome back to another episode of Born Again Bowhunting Podcast. On today's episode, we have Keith Robertson from THP this year. How's it going tonight?
Pretty good. Robinson. I heard Robertson there.
I'm sorry.
But
That's
all right.
That's all right.
Thanks for correcting us.
You're good.
So,
happy to be here. Thanks for having me on, guys.
yeah, thanks for taking the time to join us. We're looking forward to this one, I think.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, go ahead, Kev. Sorry.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we got a couple icebreaker questions before we really get into the podcast.
Perfect. Okay, my name's Keith Robinson. I am just graduated from OU last May here down in Athens, Ohio University. I'm now currently living in Athens doing remote work for kind of just freelance, I would call it. Several different jobs that I've been picking up and treading water, more or less. Doing my own thing, and that's kind of where I'm at in life right now. Having a good time.
Sweet.
Very cool. So, a couple icebreaker questions. The first one, during hunting season, if you're, on the road, what is your go-to drink?
It could be energy drink or just regular drink or anything.
Oh, I love a good Starbucks triple shot from any gas station.
Classic. I think didn't our last guest say something about like Starbucks or something?
Our last guest said he liked black coffee and then orange citrus.
Oh yeah,
orange
Celsius.
Yeah. I guess a good hot black coffee, you really can't beat that. But if I'm going for something special, I'll go for a cold brew, something to get a good kick.
Yeah.
There you go, the old triple shot.
Yeah.
Yep.
That'll definitely get you going. That's for sure.
That'll get you excited.
Question number 2. Favorite trail camera that you're running currently?
I don't personally run too many, so I don't have many experiences with them. But to be honest, we just run these old muddy cams because they were like, I don't even know, at the time, $70 or $80 a pop, and they've been running for multiple years, and they run good enough to for a good budget camera. But
yeah,
that's what I'm most familiar with, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
And then the final question is, what's your current bow?
A Bear Divergent. I used to shoot the Charge, and then I just this year started shooting Zach Gernball's old Bear Divergent.
Okay.
Cool. I like it a lot.
Cool.
Very cool.
Nice.
So let's get into like maybe how you became an intern for THP.
Yeah, so let's start like with the process of, I think this podcast will just be basically from start to finish the process of being an intern with THP and how things go and how things are, expectations, etc. So like take us back to a year ago when you applied, and I realized that you have a little bit of connection with like Zach and whatnot, but take us back a year ago and just kind of talk about the process.
Yeah, so I graduated in May, and at the time I had been doing some filming stuff with them, and particularly with Zach for quite a while because I had grown up doing more stuff with him and kind of, grinding my teeth on filming with him and my brother back when I was in my early teens. But started filming with them, or did some Midwest whitetail stuff, and then started doing stuff when they broke away, obviously, and have been helping them for a while. So I'd had a lot of experience with them particularly, and kind of just knew the way of the road a little bit and how they operate. So that definitely helped me, but I still went kind of through the application process, and which starts in the winter pretty much right now, I guess, probably pretty soon. But they pretty much just start to sift through all the applicants, and by the spring they start to do some phone calls, and they usually do like a hunt with some of the more prospective interns and kind of vet everybody pretty thoroughly, try to pick people that fit in pretty well, and I think they usually do a pretty good job. But then you kind of just jump straight into it. I went out there pretty late, but I think Nick got out there in the summer and was filming them and kind of learning the process, doing editing and stuff. He had more background in photo, so they kind of just were walk you through the process before you get thrown into season. But I got out there in mid-August and pretty much just hit the road immediately, and just did like a right off the bat 5-week stretch on the road, kind of just get thrown straight into it. And I guess I could just continue on just the process of just kind of how it goes on the road and stuff, or if you have specific questions.
Yeah,
about that.
I was gonna say, everybody sounds like they want to hunt full time and do this stuff all the time, but man, 5 weeks on the road, that'd be,
hmm
in my opinion, that'd be
It's
pretty rough.
Yeah.
you definitely it burns you out, and I think doing the like little mini reset days is a lot of times what we'll do where you hunt and like ideally you get a trip like what we had in Wyoming where we filled a tag in 3 days. Then you have, we had 8 or 9 days set aside for one trip, and then you get done early and you kind of just get to kick back and sleep in for 3 or 4 days and just work on editing and whatnot.
Live the
And
good
just,
life.
yeah, just keep it a little bit slower. But
Yeah.
when it's on the road nonstop and you're doing hunting for, a lot of days in a row, definitely can burn you out if you don't watch yourself. That's for sure.
Oh, I can imagine. Because I know even for like us, a week long trip, it really wears on you by the end of the week. Getting up early every day, staying out till dark and just putting miles on.
Yeah,
It
and
really
then
wears on you.
you get back to the vehicle or wherever you're staying. Fortunately, some places we had a more luxury stay, but you get back to the truck and you're capturing 200 gigabytes of footage, and you got to sit there. And then by the time that's done, it's 9 o'clock already, and you got to figure out what you're going to eat. And it's just time
Yeah.
starts to melt together pretty quickly.
Yeah. No, that'd be rough.
I can imagine you lose track of days after a while when you're out there. I mean, just like what day is it? You know what I mean? Like just day after
exactly,
day,
yeah.
just the
How
same
long's
thing.
it been since I showered?
Oh, that's no bueno.
That's funny. That's
Yep.
funny.
Yeah.
So you said you started out in Wyoming.
Yeah, so I started, me and Ted did this little scouting trip down to Kansas in mid late August. Spent a few days down there and then drove up through Wyoming for a night, did a quick scout in their unit where Warb had the tag, and then met everyone in Montana where we started antelope hunting for the
Okay.
summer. And that was kind of the kickoff of doing the fall shenanigans, I guess. It wasn't technically the deer tour, but that was when we started filming stuff for the fall,
Cool.
which was August 25th or something like that. So pretty early.
So I have a question just kind of based on like camp life and just traveling and stuff. As an intern, what does THP expect? You just show up with like a bag of clothes, or like do they
Pretty
expect
much,
you to like bring your
They tell you to just like bring as little as possible, essentially, because like they have kind of that home base there, but you just show up with the clothes you need and maybe a bow and then whatever camera equipment you have, ideally, and a functional computer.
So, like, rewind a little bit. I kind of wanted to ask this question later in the podcast, but now that you brought it up, I think it's appropriate. So, but when THP started, Greg, Mindy, Zach, everybody lived in that area. What has changed, or like, what do you see? Because you have a unique experience because you've been there in the past. What do you see, or how has it changed since some of the guys aren't living in the state even anymore? Like I
think it opens it up a little bit more to just having that more like remote work atmosphere where you're not always relying on having to be in one spot, which I think opens up a lot of opportunities. It definitely makes like not necessarily the communication, but just like transferring of data and stuff and figuring out who's going to edit what, like when you're in different places. But I think it opens up a lot of opportunity for people to kind of continue on and live their preferred life rather than living in just a tiny apartment in southern Iowa for 365 days. That can wear on you too. Having everyone else being able to live their own separate lives are, they've got it figured out to this point to where they've been doing it long enough, and it seems like it just gets more and more comfortable the more you do it, and just being able to have that a little bit more life freedom for everyone. It seems like it's a little bit more comfortable that way for everyone.
Gotcha. Cool. I mean, the content didn't change in my opinion. I thought it was good quality. I just thought it was very unique that, like Zach moved to Colorado, and I think Greg and Mindy moved to one of the Dakotas, maybe.
South Dakota. Yep.
Yeah. So I just thought that'd
pretty
be
cool.
Yep. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So Kev, you got anything, or do you want them to just go into the first couple hunts or what?
Yeah, I just wanted you to roll into a couple hunts there, and
First hunt was antelope, which I don't know if you guys have any interest in trying, but I would suggest it to anybody, really.
We've never been, but we always talk about it.
Jared's been out.
Jared has been, yeah.
It's a pretty fascinating, like, hunting an animal that can see, smell, and hear on where there's like zero cover with a bow. It's like your chances are super low, but you get a lot of reps in, you get a lot of practice and just like crawling up on stuff. And it's a hell of a workout too, because you're just like sweating your butt off all day, 90 degrees and crawling through the desert cactus and stuff. It's grueling, but
how many opportunities were blown before you guys capitalized?
We kind of, I don't want to say we struggled, because I guess we shot one on day 3, which was like great, I would say. But
that's a really good trip, yeah.
Where we were in eastern Montana, which like a lot of people go to South Dakota because they've got great population there. But I think they got different rifle laws in the units up there in Montana. So the densities were like way lower, and I think they had a drought year. I had heard some local people say, so the population was like not incredible. So we had to cover a ton of ground and like just drive like all day and just hit pockets where you've seen some, you drive past, finally see one on public or close to public or whatever, and just pin it and just keep making loops around the spots where you're familiar with until you find one in an ideal spot or a good enough spot to make a stalk. But we probably did 8 or so before that successful one, which I would say is honestly a pretty good percentage. Yeah. We had some close calls, and we were hunting with Sam Soholt there, and he missed a shot at one and had another like one close to bow range. So we actually had some pretty great encounters for what seemed like it was going to be difficult right off the bat. But luckily the day the day Zach shot one, like the evening, and it was that one with the far back shot. And luckily the day after that was like the coolest day. It was like mid 70s and overcast. We ended up being out there till 6 p.m. that evening, from like pretty much 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. with barely enough water and like zero food. I had like 2 granola bars, and we were just like running on fumes by the end of that hunt, because we had to just go back in there and sit on that thing for a whole second day.
I feel like if I was a part of that hunt, or just if I lived a season with THP, I think I'd lose 100 pounds. I really do. I think I would be skin and bones. There's no way I could survive off of a granola bar for 12 hours. I would be so angry.
Yeah, you wouldn't be fun.
Screw this antelope, dude. I'm getting a burger.
I'd probably shoot you instead of the antelope, probably.
Dude, I'd be so grumpy. I get grumpy and like without food, man.
It was bad.
It'd be bad.
We had this incident where it was like we never made a video or anything, but it was a pretty funny story where I actually got nicked by a knife in the cutting process and passed out, which has happened before. But
you passed out?
Yeah, it wasn't like a huge deal, but it was kind of hilarious when it was all said and done. It was like, well, that was definitely a sign that we didn't have enough food and water, but luckily we had first aid and everything and got it.
I can relate.
Everything taken care of.
I donated blood once, and I didn't.
Yeah, but this old boy didn't lose his arm. He just got nicked in the finger.
No, but I understand. Like, if you don't have any food or water, and you will pass, it'll just be like you just take a nice little nap. How long did you pass out for? Just a couple seconds, or?
It felt like an entire night.
You caught on your sleep.
Listen. They're not telling anybody secretly he was out for 3 days. IVs and everything.
He was in the hospital. Yeah.
Man. How bad was the cut? Oops, sorry.
It wasn't bad at all, honestly. It was bad enough to where, like, when you're looking down at it, you first feel it.
You're like, uh-oh.
It's a decent amount of blood, but it didn't cut down too deep, and it was only
all right. Just enough to pass out.
Yeah.
I'd tell you boys what, I'd have a full belly and that happened to me and I'd still pass out.
You don't like blood?
I can't stomach it on a person, though.
You're one of those guys.
Yep.
Yeah, but you gutted that deer just fine in Indiana.
I'm fine field dressing an animal, but when it comes to like a person or even you, I can't stomach it.
You wouldn't have liked me at work. I about cut my finger off.
I would have been no use for you. That's for sure.
Finger cuts are ruthless. Those
Yeah.
ones are,
They just bleed
They get
forever,
ya.
man. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
Yep.
It's like, yeah. Well, enough of that rabbit hole. But I appreciate the story about you passing out. I guess that's a good one.
Nice little inside story there.
Heads up to any future interns. They feed you one granola bar a day, and don't get cut by a knife because you will die.
Make better decisions. Bring food and plenty of water.
They say don't pack anything. They really want you to pack every ounce of food that you own.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing is we usually, when we're doing hunts, it's just like you want to have an entire day's worth of food and water on you because there's a good chance that any day you could just end up in the field the entire day with no warning.
So not to go back to the story, but were you just helping field dress, or shouldn't you be filming and not field dressing?
I was just holding a leg, and it was the last leg.
Yeah.
And
who cut you?
It was, I won't disclose anymore for everyone's safety.
That's so funny.
I'm just messing.
That's funny.
It was a silly mistake.
Yeah. No, obviously we're just
last leg, and everybody's ready to go.
Yeah,
and
we're just poking fun.
Yep. Yeah. That's one where you look back and it's like you want to make sure you got all your stuff because like that stuff, if your mind isn't working 100% and you actually do got to get that animal out still, you got to still be making the right decisions.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that also shows how important it is to take some kind of field or first
Medical,
aid kit into the field as well.
Yeah, because accidents happen.
Right after that happened, my brother, it was before elk season. Right after that happened, and we were telling everyone about it. He got I think he got chainmail gloves and like a first aid kit for elk hunting because it's like that happens a little deeper and you're 10 miles deep. You're in a different situation.
That'd be rough.
Yeah. And I mean, you're always working with either sharp broadhead or sharp knife something, so it's just a good idea to have some basic.
For real though, it's not uncommon. I mean, how many times have we nicked ourselves gotten a deer? I do it at almost every deer. I nick myself.
Same.
You know?
Yeah. I'm usually getting cut somewhere. That's my sign to stop cutting. But
yeah.
So
all right, so let's go back to the Wyoming hunt. So let's just wrap that up. And you guys are done with Wyoming. You killed your goat.
Montana.
Montana. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you go next?
So after that, that was another one where we filled a tag in essentially 4 days. So we had a nice window of time where we could it was me, Ted, Zach, and Nick went back to Zach's place in Denver and sat and we all just pieced together and cut up that pronghorn hunt or 2 pronghorn videos and got those knocked out so we could just like stay ahead of the ball since we had already kind of gained some time by filling a tag early. So we went back for like 4 days. I think Forbes tag in Wyoming started September 3rd. So we had maybe like the 28th to the 3rd of a time window. And then me and Ted went up and met Warb and Greg in Wyoming for that whitetail hunt. And it was, oh my God, there was a huge heat wave going through kind of the whole country, but the West, it was just brutal. We got up in there and it was like 92 to 97 every day.
That's
and
tough.
Like not a lick of clouds ever. It's just like 14% humidity during the day. And you're just, you get a couple hours. Like the first morning we got out there and we were just trying to lay eyes on some country and just cover ground with glass. And like you get a good hour of time of natural movement in the morning. And then they're bedded down because it's already 79 degrees by 9 a.m. So that was an interesting hunt in that like you got to make good use of time, and then once you're like out of that time, you better have a comfortable camp, or I don't know, because you're sitting there you could walk through a river bottom if you want, but you're just going to be spooking bedded deer and walking through clouds of mosquitoes for no reason.
Yep.
And it's like that was a unique hunt in that aspect. And then we were also hunting in elk country out there, which was pretty cool. There were bull elk bugling and running up and down the river bottoms where we were hunting whitetails.
That's cool.
That's cool. That was a fascinating experience. That was one of the cooler moments, I would say, or the cooler trips because of that. Just having that, being able to watch elk just run around. Yeah, and then whitetails right beside them.
I remember that video. Didn't you guys see more bull elk than you did whitetail for the first couple of days?
Yeah. I would say for sure, until we found like the pockets
Yeah.
where you get into a pocket and then you realize like, oh, I've been looking at elk for this whole time, and you start seeing whitetail, and it's like, dang, these things are tiny.
Yeah.
You actually got to start looking in the little pockets for these
funny.
things.
Yeah.
But that hunt was just like ultimately perfect when me and Warb and Ted went out and glassed a buck that morning, and it was like they ended up going back to bed, I guess fairly late. We walked until 9:30, something like that, and lost them in some thicker, swampier stuff. Just went into town and grabbed ice and lunch, because we were like, well, feel pretty confident about this one. We need to get ice because it's insanely hot. Get the meat on the ice as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So we did that and went straight back to that spot that evening. And I was glassing from the knob, and Ted and Ward went down and killed that thing right at last light, coming just like working right out the same transition that he went in that morning with the other bucks. And there were a couple other does around, ended up coming out of that little green swamp, but little micro habitats down there where like the whitetails are only using river bottom stuff, because it's just high desert. Once you get up above that, essentially not desert, but just the plainsy stuff, that the habitat is so limited. There's not very many whitetail tags getting handed out in that unit, simply because there's not many whitetails.
Gotcha. Cool.
But and then also they had another interesting thing about that one is we ended up getting fortunately just got checked by the game warden right after Ward shot that one, and they just like checked his tags, and they took a what was it, a lymph node, I guess is what it was, out of the head, and did the CWD test for us. We didn't have to drop it off anywhere. It ended up testing positive, and they said,
Oh, geez.
I think 10% of the population is their estimate test positive for CWD in that region.
It stinks.
Which is pretty high, but
Wow.
the deer didn't show any like signs of weakness or anything, so that was an interesting. It's the first.
So what do you think? The old boy had like a couple weeks to live, and he was going to die, or what?
I don't know if it's a progressive thing where maybe a couple more years he would have died, or if it just happens super quickly, like whenever it happens, it just breaks and they die quickly. But I would imagine it's probably that way because it's a brain.
And then normally it's always velvet in the summer, though, right? Like he was hard horned, right?
I think it's a EHD. That's EHD. They usually.
Oh, am I thinking of EHD?
Die around that stress time, but yeah, CWD. I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Pretty indiscriminate. Right. Yeah,
you're right.
That's crazy.
Well, so then, what did you guys do with the meat? Did you guys?
I don't think he ended up keeping that because he had talked to. He had already processed all of it too.
I remember that. Yeah.
He did a podcast or whatever with a deer biologist up over there on Iowa and talking about CWD, and that guy was like, "There's no signs yet, or like yet. There's no sign that it can pass through the meat, but it's one of those things where it's like, you don't want to be the first guy." So Ward played it safe on that one.
But there's probably a lot of people that have eaten deer unknowingly.
I would assume, if you're not getting them tested, and there's areas where it could be present,
especially if the old boy's just strolling around acting like nothing happened. Like that deer was just healthy, living his life.
I mean, they found out because they got it tested
because the random game warden showed up.
Yeah,
well, that's interesting.
Maybe if you don't Liver King it, you'll be fine. Maybe if you cook it, it's good to go.
Exactly.
Don't Liver
King it,
then you're good to go.
Don't eat the brain.
Yeah, or his nuts. Just
don't do that.
So, were you guys in a unit where you had to get them tested anyway?
I think they suggest it for the archery, and then I believe like when they open the rifle season, since like that's when the overwhelming majority of people are coming to hunt those units is for rifle season. I think they might make you test rifle harvests.
Yeah.
I believe
there's an area in our county that a couple years ago during gun season, they had a check station, and they would check for CWD. I think that's expired now.
You guys are you in Wayne?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I knew Wayne. Yeah. That's been.
But that was a couple years back.
Yeah, that was like 5 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
Didn't it move southern Ohio? Is that where it moved to? Like where you're getting tested and people are testing? Or is that is Ohio gone?
They went.
I know.
I thought
there's some issues over in the Killdeer Plains region, over around like Marion and stuff, where
Okay.
there's
Yeah,
way too
it
many
went
deer.
west, I
I
think.
know they started opening seasons and stuff earlier just to try to drop the population some.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
I shot my first buck up there in Holmes County, actually.
No kidding.
No
not far
joke.
from us.
That's
Grew
just,
up in Knox County, and Zach's grandpa's farm was there in Holmes County, and that's where I did a lot of my first hunting, actually, I would say. At
Gotcha.
home and over there.
that's awesome. Small
pretty
world.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Well, since we're on the subjects of first, I was scrolling through your Instagram, and you also shot your first out of state deer this year too.
I did, yeah. Yep.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. That was pretty soon after. I guess it would have been. Oh no, I guess we did a short Kansas trip after Wyoming, which was pretty uneventful. It was a lot of fun. We saw bucks, but we didn't get any shots at them. But then went to did Missouri, and I got a tag from Missouri. Me and Nick did, and we were pretty much, the goal was to just shoot whatever was in range, and like we were definitely shooting does on that trip, and we were hunting an area that actually had it seemed like the deer density was pretty high too. Like we had some pretty good hunts for how warm and middle of September it was, but that hunt was just found some like pretty prime white oak feeding, some like big spice bush thicket on a northeast slope, and could just tell deer were just coming up over that ridge top in the evening, and we pushed in, I guess it was the first deer I've shot out of a saddle too. But
nice.
me and Warb got up in that saddle and had a couple of does come out right to 12 yards. There's a lot of firsts on that shot, actually. Some of them were not as great. It was the first spine shot I've ever put on a deer, which is a good learning experience. But luckily, I mean, it goes pretty quick when you do it that way. I climbed down and got the second shot in it. But yeah, that was my first. I had done one other out-of-state hunted with Zach in Georgia a couple of years ago. And man, that was tough. But this is the first successful out-of-state harvest, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's always exciting.
Sweet, yeah. Congrats again.
Mm-hmm. Once I hadn't really had any other than that, the Georgia hunt, but like before that, hadn't had an experience with like doing many out-of-state hunts as far as purchasing stuff myself, and I feel like that can be kind of overwhelming sometimes, but you do it a couple times and you realize how easy it is to really just hop state line and buy tag and you're legal, and just like check and make sure you're legal and you're good.
I always have a tendency to call the DNR though. I haven't built the confidence just to like go online and buy a tag, because the most confusing part for me, at least, and I've only hunted a handful of states. I'm not like, maybe like 4 or 5 different states I've hunted, but for me, it's like the process of like, okay, does my license cover the tag? Or like some states, like you can buy like a package deal. And I always like to call and verify, like, okay, what do I need to legally hunt a whitetail? And then the DNR of that state will normally tell you, okay, you need this license. And I'll be like, okay, that one cost how much? And then I know exactly which one they're talking about. And then like, that's how I do it. So
yeah, that's a great move. Just like to have that peace of mind, because
honestly,
especially when you're filming stuff, you want to make sure you're always
and it's
checking everything.
And honestly, it is overwhelming, because like you want to do everything legal, and then you get on the website and there's like a million different things that you can buy and purchase, and like time of year, and
every state.
and every state's different. And then just like the interface of like the website or of their app, it's like, man, you're not familiar with it, and it's just like, just good rule of thumb to always call, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And also this year we ran into, so when we went to Indiana to purchase our license, it always said apprentice, and we had to call in and give them our like hunter ID number first, and then it was
I thought that was a little strange. I had to.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that was strange. So if anybody, real quick, if anybody wants to go to Indiana and hunt, at least for us, maybe we did something wrong. We had to give them our hunter safety course number.
Yeah.
And like I didn't know mine, so I had
know mine.
I got my hunter safety course when I was like 6.
Me too.
Like couldn't even write my own name, but my dad was answering it for me, and it was like everybody else does.
Yeah.
So I had to call the Ohio Department of Natural Resources,
ODNR,
obviously, And
So is that not the same number that is just your like ID number on your
no,
license?
it's not. It's
different
not.
one?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a different number. And they
That's
gave it to
interesting.
me.
I've always, for the ones I've hunted, I've just like given them the date that I got my like hunter safety, and then like as long as I have my Ohio number, essentially ID number, but it could totally be different for.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we did it. We could have been wrong. Like, we could have done something wrong, and like, it wasn't that normal people are listening to this thinking, "What are these boys talking about?"
Possible.
But at least for our experiences, like, it wouldn't change from apprentice to a regular license until we did that.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, let's. You want to keep moving forward with how the season progressed?
Yeah. So after that Missouri trip, I was able to take a trip back home for a week, which was nice. That was like a good breather, like hard reset from transitioning from that like early season into like the beast of October, November. So I came home for a week or so and then drove back out to Iowa October 2nd. It was in Iowa for 17 days, I guess, till the 20th I left, and evening, and then 20th. So it was like 18 days I was there hunting in early October, which ended up being very fruitful October for us. We had some sweet hunts and stage hunted into a lot of areas and just learned a lot about some slightly new areas that they hadn't hunted quite as much, and got to break down some pretty cool pieces of habitat and had some really cool early season hunts. And the weather was just like pretty great. We had some awesome cold fronts.
Yeah, we got that giant
early
cold
October.
front. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So that was, we ended up getting within that stretch of 15th to the 19th. We shot 3 bucks there in Iowa, and Jake had just shot one in North Dakota right before that. So it was like we were on a heck of a roll coming into that late October time frame. And from there, I went up to, like, right after we recovered Ted's buck, that day after with the dog, I got in my car and drove up to Minnesota, met up with Zach, and then we drove from where we met up another however many hours to where we actually hunted, and stayed there from 21st to November 7th or something like that. We were there for another 16 or 17 day stretch.
Wow.
That was the trip that I didn't shower for that entire stretch. I just have to throw that out there.
Gosh.
Dude, I couldn't even imagine.
That was a grind of a trip. If there is ever a trip that would be a grind, but it was...
Dude, them deer were smelling you boys from 2 miles away.
Oh, no doubt. But we got slammed with some like pretty unseasonably warm temperature for that like northern Minnesota stuff. Like, it should have been dang near snowing on us, and it was in the 60s for a couple weeks. So we struggled with weather there, and it was a super fun trip, and it was a new habitat for me and Zach both. So like we learned a lot on that first trip, and then I opted to kind of just take a different route and not drive all the way back up there. And Nick went with him back there. They shot that one in the snow a couple weeks later. But yeah, Minnesota was honestly a heck of a time, and we got to our friends that we met there, Mitch and Tate. Mitch shot that one day before Halloween, so we got to at least like be a part of like a successful evening of kind of hanging out. Like, heck yeah, you guys did it.
Yeah.
But that was a cool trip, and we got to stay in their cabin and didn't have to sleep in tents for multiple weeks, which helped us be able to be sustainable and stay there for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that had to help with the morale,
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely, yeah. But that was one where the confidence was high, and then I guess Zach hit that one in the shoulder right off the bat, and it was just like such a textbook perfect hunt. Like, we just went into a spot and scouted it, and just kind of wrote up what we thought was going on, and went back in there on a wet, windy morning. The next morning, slipped like right into the perfect spot, exactly where we wanted to be. And like minutes after shooting light, buck moved in and like just put that shot just barely too high, because it was pretty dark morning gray light when he hit that one. But fortunately, that one was we figured out was shot later by a rifle hunter.
Yep.
Which is a super interesting part of that story. It was honestly made us feel way better when he got that message to know that that thing didn't just dive into a cattail swamp somewhere and die, that thing actually made it through that. It seemed plenty healthy.
Yeah.
But Minnesota went down to, I guess I had helped edit some of those videos for Zach. Took a hard break after Minnesota and then hunted a week in Missouri with Hayden. Another just quick trip. We started in one spot and it was just getting slammed with Louisiana hunters. Were just overloading the spot in Missouri. It was just like almost every hunter we saw was a Louisiana truck.
Interesting. That is interesting.
We couldn't find a pull off that wouldn't have like 4 trucks at it. This is November, the November 7th week or whatever. So we expected to kind of just have to float around, and it's hotter than hell too.
Yeah.
And finally we took a day off and worked at their at the warehouse they had there. I kind of got to see kind of the process of that stuff, behind the scenes stuff, and we just packed up and went to a totally different spot and hunted some cool wetland habitat and had some pretty cool classic mid-November cruising buck, found a lockdown buck, like just kind of the staple rut hunts. For kind of got that out of my system. Messed up a shot that I probably should have killed a buck if I would have had my bow ready, but we both brought our bows in on a hunt one morning, and I was filming Hayden, and one came in that and it was like cruising in so fast, and he was like, "Oh, I won't shoot that thing," and I was like, "Oh, I absolutely will shoot this thing."
Give me the bow.
I didn't have an arrow on. My bow was behind me, and I had to try to slip an arrow on. The thing was 12 yards before it could even blink. But Missouri was a cool experience. That's a cool. I mean, it's obviously no secret, and a lot of people hunt it, but it's a pretty cool state where they do a lot of management, and there's a lot of just like really cool public areas that offers pretty awesome opportunities for non-resident hunters. Not to make any of the Missouri hunters mad for toting that, but I mean, there's going to be pressure, I guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with everybody goes out of state nowadays, and it's like it's not knowledge that nobody knows, So,
yeah, exactly. But after Missouri, I took edited the whole Missouri video in a couple of days, and then drove back home for another hard reset. And I was gonna I hunted some around here, but down here around Athens, Southeast Ohio, got some pretty bad EHD pockets, and I had some hunts where I'd just walk a couple miles in the woods and not even see a rub, and saw some pretty freaky stuff that killed my morale enough after hunting Iowa and Missouri that it was just like, I think I'm going to take a little break for just a little bit before we switch gears to do something else. But had the Thanksgiving season and everything, and then went up to New York and tried out some tracking, which was another totally new experience that I was pretty excited about. And Zach had done it before, but we went up there and just tried to break ourselves in a little bit more on that, which is another awesome, totally different form of hunting that I would suggest to anybody that gets a chance, just somewhere up north where snow still exists, where you can hunt something with snow on the ground. That's an awesome way to just be able to just walk around and see tracks and know that you're in the game if you're following tracks.
So I have a selfish question to ask. How do you know, like in the snow, how do you know how fresh? I mean, obviously, if it's like hours old, like you can tell, but like what makes you walk by a big track and be like, all right, this one's worth tracking? Or do you just jump on a track? Like, do you just jump on a big buck track and it just leads to more big buck tracks, and then you just jump on one that you think's the freshest, or what do you do?
Like, I'm definitely no professional, but at least from like the short experience, and like we talked to a lot of guys that hunt quite a bit up there, but it's obviously like if you can catch the snow like the day of the snow and just be hunting right when it's done, and then the day after, you obviously have your track that's like, you could pick up a track that is only X amount of hours old
Gotcha.
that you likely will
Gotcha.
be able to follow back to a bed or whatever. And like usually the trend in a lot of those areas is like if you pick up a track that it looks fairly fresh, whatever that means for the situation, for the conditions, pick up a track in some low ground or whatever where they're feeding, you see feeding sign and it starts to go uphill, you can assume that that deer is going uphill to like bed somewhere on a higher bench. Super broad, but
It makes sense
but,
though.
But then like as the conditions start to change, if you get some melting and refreezing or you get a light flurry or whatever, you just start to see that difference of like the track will get more mud in it, or it'll crust over, or it'll start to cave in, and you can just start to kind of gauge. It's also, if you see a couple deer, or you like spook deer, and you get on that track, and you can start to gauge like what fresh track looks like because you just saw a deer walk through there, and you can kind of just start to learn
Just
what a super fresh track looks like.
Yeah,
but it's a huge learning curve coming from a place where like I don't know, in Ohio it'll just snow.
We've never done that, so
yeah,
that's why I asked. I was just so curious on like what do you look for? I mean, you can find a million tracks. Which one do you decide to track, and which one do you just walk over? You know?
Oh yeah, it starts to get weird when you get higher concentrations of deer in a certain area too, where all of a sudden the track just goes into a hub and there's 7 does walked through there in one night, and all of a sudden you got to sift through all these tracks and like not walk on the track, and it's a lot of breaking stuff down and a lot of just covering ground, and it's cool. It's a lot of fun.
It'd be fun.
Also pretty difficult walking in the mountains in the snow for an entire day.
Yeah, that's something that we just don't experience around here.
Yeah, we don't get enough snow. No.
Yeah.
But all right, so continue with your season.
So after tracking, what was that, mid-December, I guess we came back after that, and I think ended up taking a break from then until all the way to Ohio Muzz season, I guess. Yeah, I didn't do any other trips between then and Ohio Muzz through like that late December time frame, and I don't think I did. I'll let you know if I do, but I don't think I don't.
If you think about it, just jump into the story. But.
But then Ohio Muzz was pretty great to us. It was another awesome season where it's a great way to just like wrap up the season too, where you have that fun hunt with all your friends to look forward to, and I think it's just a great opportunity for group hunting because muzzleloaders. The more guns you have, the more shots you have, I guess.
Yeah. And honestly, to touch base on that a little bit, I think the muzzleloader hunts that you guys do, or I should say what THP does, it's one of the little mini series that I look forward to the most, in my opinion. I absolutely love that series of the muzzleloader hunting.
We love doing that, and Zach has done pretty much all the editing, I guess, for all those years. He always just takes all that back and just sits and drools over the footage for an entire month. But we enjoy doing that every year. That's something we pretty much look forward to as soon as the season's over 1 year and just start to plan for the next season already. We're trying to look into ways to just like how many other states can we just go and get a group of 7 to 10 guys together and just do
honestly,
4 or 5 day gun hunt.
Yeah, it'd be great for the content of the channel, I think, honestly, because I really enjoy that kind of content. I really do. I really like it.
It's a lot of fun. I think everyone just loves a good group hunt too. It's just there's nothing better than having everyone together and just sharing stories and having fun. Essentially, end of the season. That was the total close of my season. I ended up carrying a bow one more time at the end of January. Just went on a hike and was like, I should at least carry my bow if it's still season.
Yeah.
But didn't see any deer. But that was essentially the last hunting that I did for the entire year, which is a good way to just hang up the coat. And I've usually especially on this year where did that much hunting, it was like I'm already was very much looking forward to pretty quickly moving into this time of year where we start doing more like habitat work and getting the chainsaws back out. Like I missed that aspect of just doing stuff. I love doing habitat work with all the people back here at home too. So that's something I missed for the fall and the summer as well. But hunting is also fun. So
yep.
And you got to cover a lot of the country this year. rolling around with THP. So that had to be really, really cool too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
And just
yeah.
the
It
amount
was
of what you've
some
learned.
pretty new areas. Hunted a lot of new country, a lot of new habitats. That was like one of the coolest parts about it for me, was just getting to see all these different habitats where different animals are living and different plant communities, and just being able to see that the diverse nature of the country, really.
So when you guys are in all these different habitats, do you kind of attack your tactics starting out the same way and then tweak them depending on the atmosphere and stuff, or do you try to sit back and make a game plan right to start with on something different per what the situation is?
Usually if it's like a totally new, like for Minnesota, it was like Zach grew up in Northwest Ohio, which it was honestly pretty similar to some Northwestern Ohio stuff, just big woodlots and big ag country. But it had this new aspect of like cattail,
Marshy
dogwood,
stuff,
alder thickets, and marshy stuff. So it was like this totally new aspect to us, where it was like we don't really know what to expect, and like other than like being able to drive around and see a green field with turnips in it or something like that, where deer are going to be beside. Other than that, it's like we got to just cover ground and like put a plan together to be able to cover ground efficiently and check like your biggest transitions and your edges, and driving around looking at fields and seeing like where quantities of deer are likely going to be herding up, because at that point in the year it was already, they were tilling fields under, and like as far as ag food, it was already pretty limited for that specific trip. So it was like just covering ground, and like once you start to put pieces together, all in all, they're just deer in the end. So it's like they're making similar moves. It's just always based on the difference in, terrain or habitat types. It's situational, but like I said, in the end, they're just goats. So can't overthink it too much.
Yeah. No joke. Yeah. That's cool. Well, that wraps up your season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you already touched a little bit on like one of your favorite hunts with all the elk running around and stuff, but do you have like a state or anything that was like just mind blowing as far as like the habitat or the deer numbers or just opportunities, whatever, just something that like
your favorite
is a favorite hunt for you?
I don't know. I don't like, not too many like crazy standout ones. I think Minnesota, and the fact that it was just like I had zero expectation of just being that. Like that was almost the farthest north I've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
But you're still in this like weird ag country land, and like that was just such a different like feeling place to be. Kind of, it was like just different enough that it felt just pretty foreign, and like this northern ag country thing. That was a pretty cool like different habitat type to tackle. And I don't know. I mean, other than that, I liked hunting in Missouri because I actually got to hold a bow for a couple days there. That was, I got to shoot a deer. That was a lot of fun.
That helps.
Iowa was crazy, but it honestly gets old pretty quick because it's just, you get spoiled, and I don't know, it's just, Iowa can get to your head pretty quickly. It's a trap kind of. But I've hunted like some gun seasons there, so that was at least cool to like hunt some of the archery season there, because I've only hunted like their second gun season with Zach however many years. It's always at that point it's been run around with so many gun hunters because there's not a ton of public land, so you're hunting wads of pressured deer. But it was just a different aspect to hunt natural movement deer. And but other than that, it was like every new place is just a new cool opportunity, and had a good time.
Very cool. I have a couple like funny questions to ask, or just kind of like to, enough with the strategy and like the traveling around, and like as I ask this, if you guys think of anything, please just pipe in. And I mean this in like all joking aside, so anybody listening, like don't take this to heart, but I'm just curious. For one, I want to know who, now that you've lived with everybody for almost a year, who out of the THP family was your favorite? And then I want to know who was your least favorite. And I mean that in like all joking aside, people, we are not being serious, but I just, like to kind of break the ice. Like what Who's your favorite? Who's your least favorite? And the kicker is, and why?
I'll just say Zach for both of those, just to keep.
That's a good answer.
No, I mean,
That's not a good answer. I don't like fence sitting answers.
Safe answer.
always had like, or, you know, I've hunted with Zach a ton, and I will say that, and Zach knows this, if you hunt with him for too long, sometimes you get burned out on him a little bit. So if I had to say, I guess I could say that, and he wouldn't get too mad at me. But
yeah.
And I spent a lot of time with Ted this year, which was pretty cool because I've hung out with him a bunch before. But that entire first 5 weeks was just me and Ted on the road, and like we never really, you know, it's kind of crazy to spend that much time with someone and never really like get mad at them.
Yeah, nice to meet you. We're gonna spend the next 5 weeks together.
I was just gonna say, like, you're gonna get to know somebody really quick.
Oh yeah.
If you're gonna be with them every day, all night, all day for 5 weeks,
you're gonna know what they smell like after 2 or 3 days.
For 8 or 10 hours a day.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, if you don't get to know them quick, then you're not gonna have a good time.
Yeah, then something's not going well.
Yeah.
But then, like, having Nick as well, the other intern this year, that was just such a cool addition to the entire team in general. Like, he was such a cool guy to hang around. Just will do anything and has a good time doing anything.
Yeah, from the videos, I really enjoyed when Nick would get involved and like it seemed like he was your guys' like camp chef almost.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh boy,
him and Hayden will cook some mad meats too. But
that's awesome.
Nick's got the Texas in his touch, so
that's awesome. Kev, do you have one?
I don't know.
Okay, I thought you were typing in like you had something. Cromer?
So I'm not the hunter in this group. I'm like the target archer guy. But just like for my information, you're like the guy behind the camera, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, pretty much. Yeah.
So what anything that you learned this year that was new as far as us being behind the camera? Any challenges you faced with that?
I feel like you kind of just innately learn some stuff just from doing it like over and over. But I think you just start to learn how to streamline, like how to film stuff, because a lot of that is just like not filming too much, but also filming enough. So I think you just start to learn more of like
what
the shots you need to tell a story.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
But that was kind of what I wanted to get out of it for the most part, was just like perfecting or just kind of polishing my storytelling ability, because it's difficult making a story out of something that might not necessarily be too crazy of a story before you try to put some spice to it.
Yep. I got a real quick kind of like spoof off of that question. So did you or anybody on the team make like a big double push the record button kind of situation, or did anything like that happen this year where you just completely messed up?
There was one real stupid mistake that I made that could have been way worse. No double punches this year that I know of, but when me and Hayden were hunting in Missouri, we were capturing footage at the end of the trip, and we were both super tired. He was driving back to Wisconsin that night, and I was going back up to Iowa, and we're moving cards around, and he had 2 cards in his camera, and I captured one, and I was like, yeah, that's the whole thing. Like that was everything we had from the past couple days, and just got lazy and didn't read the other card, and Click was trying to format the one that I definitely had already captured, and then for some reason, like in my brain, I was like, you should pull these out and check them before you do this, and I just formatted a card that had a chunk of like footage from like in between all that other stuff, but his camera did this weird thing where it hit the slot select on its own, so it just had filmed a collection of clips on a different card, so I just wiped pretty much an entire like half a day's worth of footage. Nice. It was just like it happened, and I was instantly just like, wow, I really messed that up. So that was a lesson learner where it was a dumb one where I had thought before that I could have said I will always check a card before I format it, but now I guarantee I will.
Yeah. I think everybody makes that mistake, in like any kind of content creator. You make that mistake once, and then you never make that mistake again.
Yep.
Because like I am so anal about checking cards. Like I'm almost like nervous to format them. Like I really am. I'm like, man, did I really get everything off of it? I'll triple check.
I'll format it for a couple weeks, and then it's like I can double check multiple times. It's like I know I have that. I can actually erase this now.
That's actually a good point. Like almost get the video done before formatting the card.
That's a good idea.
And they're
Mhm.
cheap, like $10. You can buy $20. You can buy a
Yeah.
64 gig,
Mhm.
like class 10
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever. So who cares?
Mhm.
But all right, I think I'm good if you guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on this
We
side.
we just have a closing question for you.
Yeah.
And that is, what have you learned from deer hunting that you can relate or you can put into everyday life?
Man, that's a deep one.
Yeah, and if you need a
I guess,
second,
like,
you can.
honestly, just like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I was going to go a certain way with that. I was going to say just like patience in general, but I would say just critical thinking, just like every step of your life that you make, just like you are when you're hunting, like what's going to happen when I do this, and just kind of what's the chain of consequences that'll come from each decision I make.
Yeah,
I feel like that's an important thing that you should take with you in life as well.
I like it. I like that one.
I like the critical thinking answer. That's
Mhm.
very smart because, like, yeah, if you're not critically thinking when you're hunting, you're probably not going to do too well.
Yeah, if you're just walking through the
Mhm.
woods,
Yeah.
you're not doing anything.
Mhm.
If you're just walking through life, not thinking about.
But sometimes,
Everything means something. You just got to
Yeah.
take away something from everything you see.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I like that one. Yep.
Cool answer. But he said, so the funny thing is you said patience, and every guest has said patience, and it's a good thing because everybody relates to it, and then, everybody has their own take on the patience.
Mhm. I said that,
aspect.
and then I realized like something I'm trying to do better is like make snappy decisions. So I kind of went a different direction where it's just like sometimes you got to make quick critical thinking decisions. So like just when you're gonna do something, just do it, and like don't double think stuff too. Like just trust your gut, and but also think stuff through critically.
I think too, kind of like just to dive on that a little bit, because I really do like that answer. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, maybe people will think I'm nuts, but like you were talking about like making quick decisions, like in a high pressure situation. I kind of relate that back to like instincts. Like, what are you gonna do like when this happens? And I almost feel like the more you do that, you sharpen your instincts, honestly. Like if you put yourself in more situations where you have to make that decision, you're only bettering yourself down the road because like your body and your mind reacts a lot better. Like you react a lot better under pressure.
Sure.
And I really like that answer.
You don't freeze as easy, maybe.
And, not even in a hunting situation, like in life, like how many situations are you in life where you have to make I'm not gonna say life-threatening decision, but I mean, obviously, like
game time decisions.
Yeah, sometimes you got to decide now.
Yeah,
and I feel like hunting really does help in that.
Just committing to a decision and following through with it is a big thing, I think, too. That goes both ways there.
Yep. I like that answer.
Great answer.
Well, thank you, sir, for spending the last hour with us. We greatly appreciate it, and
it was a fun time.
Really enjoyed watching the THP content this year, and I know that you were a big part of that. And I just want to say thank you because I know how much work goes into that. And thanks again.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Well,
yeah, thank you, boys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
We'll have Kevin send you out.
Yeah, and then real quick before we wrap this up, why don't you plug yourself on what you got going on, or like where people can find you, or like whatever you're gonna do for your freelance stuff?
Yeah, so you can find my personal Keith Robinson Instagram, but then I also have at Ohio Wild, which is what I function under as my own freelancer. And I've been doing a lot of work with, I'll just plug, I work with my buddy Larry, Native Landscapes. We do a lot of habitat work, and a bunch of other friends are involved with their own businesses, but you can kind of find all my work within Ohio Wild and Native Landscapes, ohio.com, and YouTube channel type stuff. But some cool habitat work projects that I'm a part of there, and some cool stuff coming in the next few years, I would say.
Sweet.
Cool. Yeah, go check them out, guys. All right.
Cool.
Well,
thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. It was a good one.
Yep. We're going to wrap this up.
All right. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. You can always be born again, and born again is out.
Peace.